Okay, so it looks like we've got a good number of people here. That's wonderful. And I want to welcome you all to the December meeting of the Greater Pine Island Civic Association. We are being recorded. In my welcoming statement tonight, I thought to mention our COVID situation right now. You know, Florida has been justly glad that we've had a very low number of COVID cases recently. Currently, our numbers are still some of the lowest in the nation. But, you know, the improvement has come at a great cost. There have been 61,701 lives lost in Florida. And that is part of the reason that we've had these low numbers. Either people have become immune because they've had it, because they've got the vaccine, or unfortunately because they passed away. But now it seems just today, we've seen our numbers have begun to climb again. So with visitors and part-time residents arriving from the north where cases are a lot higher, particularly Michigan. We have a lot of Michiganders down here. We're Michiganders ourselves. We love Michiganders. However, their state is one of the highest in the nation. And with the Omicron variant spreading throughout the country, we just ask you to please keep yourself and others safe. Vaccinations, boosters, and masks in public settings are still our best protection against this terrible disease. So with that, I'd like to start by sharing the agenda for tonight. I'm going to introduce a couple of new board members. We'll quickly take a look at the minutes of the October general meeting. If you may remember that the November meeting was canceled, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. We'll have a treasurer's report from Mike Sweeney, our treasurer, and also a report on the multi-use path. That's also Mike Sweeney. And Mike will take a few of your questions, if you have any, after he gives his short report. Quickly then, we'll move on to our featured speaker, Pamela Keyes, Director of Lee County General Utilities, who's going to talk with us about the possibility of getting a modern sewage system on Pine Island. Afterwards, after her presentation, we'll have questions for Pam. And I've just taken the update on the Palmetto Berry pilot project off the agenda, because we are not ready to talk about that quite yet. And then announcements. Is there anything I have forgotten that anybody would like to see on the agenda? If so, go ahead and unmute yourself and speak up, please. Okay, hearing nobody speaking up, I will stop that share.
Helen,
Yeah.
excuse me, we have an in-person meeting coming up on that kayak launch.
We do, and we'll talk, yeah. And that'll be in the announcements. We'll talk about that. That'll be next month.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if there's anything we need to do before that meeting, but I'll defer until we talk about it in the announcements.
Okay, so you can see that Nadine has put something in the chat about that, what that meeting is, where it's going to be, and when. But we will announce that at the end. And it's also on our website. So, and we hope we will be getting that in the paper on time this month. Okay, anything else that people would like to add or question about the agenda? Okay, very good. So we have two new board members, one of whom is here tonight. Connie DeLessio is here. And Cindy Bear is the second one of our new board members. They are filling the seats of two members who resigned this year. Jamie Brush-DeLacy is one of those members who resigned, and Claudia Brinch, who also resigned. Cindy Bear is officially on leave until our February or March meeting, so I'll introduce her or allow her to introduce herself at that time. But right now, since Connie is here, we'd like to ask you, Connie, to just say a few words about your background and why you're interested in being on the board of the GPICA.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Connie. My husband and I relocated to the island full-time this past year. We've been residents here for 3 years now, part-time. I come from, in case you can't tell, I come from New York. Usually once I open my mouth, everybody knows where I came from and nobody needs to ask. I was born and raised in New York City on a little island called Staten Island. I just finished working, thanks to COVID, early retirement from a career in the cable industry. I did 23 years with them. I worked in information technology and did project management and such. The main reason why I'm really interested in working with you guys, the island that Guy and I come from up in New York is the same length as this island and double the width. And we were born and raised there on a really beautiful rural island, much like Pine Island, which I think is why we fell in love with it. And unfortunately, now there's over 500,000 people living on that island. So my first pet peeve was to get involved with Deb on the development committee. And I've been working with her for a couple of, I guess, about a month and a half now, looking at open permits and so forth on the island, so we can kind of keep an eye on what's going on, and hopefully not let it turn into what Staten Island turned into, so I don't have to run away from here too. So I'm looking forward to getting to meet all you guys, and that's about it. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Connie, and welcome. Next on the agenda is the minutes from the October meeting, which I will share. Okay, so as you may remember, our November meeting was canceled due to the failure of the Conservation Foundation to post the announcement of their public information center to the newspapers. And so they've asked for another time, and so we're very happy to give them the opportunity to do that. So here we are with the minutes of the October meeting. I'm just going to briefly run through this. As you may remember, we had the Lee County Department of Transportation Director, Randy Searchy, and Robert Price, who was the Deputy Director, and they gave us 4 different options for making the traffic flow more smoothly at the 4-way stop, the intersection of Stringfellow Road and Pine Island Road. I'm not going to go through the options. You can see this all on the website with their presentation. But just to say that, even with any of these options, we're not going to get to above the grade C level, as if you were still in school. A grade C is pretty mediocre, but that's sort of the best that we would be able to do. So this is still open for discussion and sort of a wait and see. We talked about the Calusa Cay Orchard Cove development, which of course is the new Publix. It still hasn't opened, and the development that is going to go on behind that, and the traffic that may result from all of those people turning into that whole area right at the right off the center of the island. We talked a little bit about the shared youth path, which is the bike path, and how that the complications that come with that as the bike path will be going through Mount Lachey, which is where we think most of the problem for traffic originates anyway. We gave an update on the palmetto berry harvest. Unbeknownst to us, the director of Lee County Parks and Recreation, Jesse Lavender, it started a pilot project on our Pine Island Flatwoods Preserve that picked a certain number of berries and then sold them, and then the proceeds went to the county. And this seemed to violate a lot of our dearly held wishes for this island, that preserves would be left to be preserves and not used for commercial purposes, or at least that we would be informed before this would happen. And of course, it was carried out without contacting the advisory committee for the 2020 project, which is the whatever you call it. I'm losing my words now, but the 2020, this area, the Pine Island Flatwood Preserve, is a 2020 project, and so the advisory committee should have been informed before they went ahead and harvested the berries, which are necessary for wildlife there. Talked a little bit about the Old Development Orders Committee, which is, as Connie mentioned, is going along and finding out where on the island are all of these development orders that have not been brought to fruition, but are sitting there year after year, getting being allowed to continue without the knowledge of the public. So we really wanted to know where might development take place, so that we wouldn't have these surprises coming to us as we did when the publics all of a sudden announced that they were going to take that large space right next to the four-way stop. Then the public hearing about the liquor store that was requested to be located nearer the school than is legally possible. They seem to have won that battle. I think the liquor store is going to go ahead and be placed right next to the Publix within 319 feet of the school. Finally, we had an update from the Pine Island Pandemic Task Force. And as you could see at that time, we were so happy to see the cases going way down here in Lee County as well as in Florida. But now, as I said before, they're on the upswing again. Okay. So can we have a motion to accept the minutes if there are no corrections or discussion? Connie, you're raising your hand. Yeah, what are you saying?
Sherry moves to accept.
Okay.
That's what I was doing with my hand, sorry.
Okay, Connie, then you're a second. Connie seconded, thank you. If anybody, I have to do it this way on Zoom. If anybody is opposed, please unmute yourself and say so. Okay, thank you. I will assume then that the minutes are accepted. Okay. Let's go on to a quick treasurer's report from Mike Sweeney.
The ever-riveting treasurer's report. Well, actually, it was good news this month. Helen's going to get it up there for you momentarily.
I am.
But,
I don't
we
think I am.
had two different things that happened under the in the past month. First of all, we had a Crab Fest membership table where a lot of people stopped by, and when they stopped by, many people renewed their dues. In fact, we collected $180 on that. So we're probably thinking that we'll continue to do that. We did the same thing for Mango Mania, and we also had a very good turnout in terms of money. And then we also have the opportunity to buy a lifetime membership. And that lifetime membership was for Karen and Noel Andrus. They spent $500, and Noel is actually a member of the board also. So Helen, can you get those treasury report up?
I'm sorry, I wasn't aware that that was going to be my task, Mike.
Oh, yeah,
So
I sent
I
you.
don't have that.
Okay.
Just read it if you have it there, if you don't
Well,
mind. Or
yeah.
you can share it if it's online. It's easy enough to share.
Well, let me just read it. Since I have it right here, I have a printed out copy here. The money market was $16,761.30, which was an increase of 15 cents since the last one. The business checking is up $3,612.34. And again, that's because there was a total of $680, 180 from membership, and then 500 from Noel and Karen Andrus that was contributed. And then the CD investment remains the same. It will not roll over until April, and that is $76,347.61.
Okay, that's it, Mike.
That's it.
Okay, are there any questions about that? If not, will somebody move to accept the treasurer's report, please?
Make a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
Thank you, Debbie. A second?
I'll second, Sherry.
Thank you, Sherry. Anybody opposed? Okay, we accept that riveting treasurer's report. Thank you, Mike. Now on, now on to the multi-use path.
Yes, I'll just give you a very quick overview on this. You're probably aware, it was in the Eagle, it's certainly been on the website, the GPICA website, that we're trying to get a 5.5 mile, and when I say we, it is a group of citizens and also community members, all community members, and FDOT, Florida Department of Transportation, are trying to get a connection made between the bike path, which runs on Veterans, and the bike path, which runs on Pine Island. And that be 5.5 miles really from Veterans all the way into Stringfellow Road. So we're looking for something that would be around 8 to 10 feet. It would be for both pedestrians and for bike traffic. We're thinking that possibly it may run on the north side of Pine Island Road as it exits Matlacha. None of this is finalized, but this is these are things that are being talked about. Of course, the big bottleneck is Matlacha itself. From the first meeting, we just recently had the second one. But from the first meeting, everybody wanted to maintain the current parking setup. And of course, many of the people that were members were people who live in Matlacha, and they want to keep the existing right-of-ways. There's obviously, everybody was concerned about there being a minimal impact on the environment, and we're hoping to continue to preserve the community character of Matlacha. So FDOT has, in the second meeting, they basically have tasked us with a program, maybe some of you have heard of it, called Complete Streets. And essentially what we're to do is we, as well as they, are to design possible ways of alleviating traffic or providing safety. Now, just as a little bit of background, Complete Streets is something that occurs in Florida, has been very successful actually in Florida. I believe there are places up in St. Petersburg and other areas where they have shared use by both buses, sometimes public transportation, like buses, cars, and bikes and pedestrians. And it varies. Sometimes it's overpasses. There's a variety of things. And I believe we've even talked about that, or people have mentioned that in earlier meetings. But there's no priority given to any one method of transportation. So just because you're a motorist does not mean that you're going to have a lot given to you that and everybody else is sort of going to have to wait. And that's what makes it so difficult, because everybody has their own interests in getting places. But at this point, we're still discussing and we're all submitting. I've already submitted my homework. And basically, it's using this software program where you set up paths, like so you could have one for entering from Veterans into Matlacha, another one exiting Matlacha all the way to Pine Island. And then, of course, the most difficult one is in Matlacha, you know, with those narrow, relatively narrow streets with buildings that are, you know, built fairly close to the edge, and where there's parking sometimes that is, you know, convenient in terms of the amount of space it takes up. You know, when you're parking at Birch, you can probably fit a lot more cars, but it's certainly slows down the traffic as people are pulling out and trying to get back onto the main road. But that's basically where we're at right now. There's 22 people on the committee, and it's called the PAG committee, but it's basically the project advisory group. That's our name. And we're basically stakeholders because we live in the community. We have a sort of a sense of what's happening in terms of when is it busiest, you know, what kind of issues, what kinds of times are there certain special parades or like the boat parade coming up, et cetera, et cetera. And there will be a public workshop. This has not been announced. They haven't set a time. They've just told us spring 2022. There will be a public workshop where everybody will be able to will attend and, you know, sort of get a feel for it. We are still in the feasibility stage, meaning that the whole thing may go south. We don't know, but we're trying to look and see how could we make this work. And there's a lot of people that like to ride their bikes, and you know, that would be that have participated in this committee and that would like to see this happen. And it's also equally true that people like to walk. Like you see all the people that walk on Stringfellow Road. And now imagine being able to walk between Matlacha and part of Pine Island, maybe a little bit of a rest area or something halfway across the route. You know, it would be attractive, at least when mosquitoes are not biting. So that's basically where we're at right now. I will certainly keep everybody updated. As I said, we just had our last meeting in early November. So I'll keep people up to date on it. And I've already been contacted by one person about speaking offline because she has some ideas. So, you know, I'm happy to, you know, receive anybody's ideas.
Well, thank you, Mike. I wonder if anybody has questions for Mike about what's been going on, or in fact, any ideas.
Yeah, I had one. Mike, at the last meeting in October, when we discussed the traffic and four corner options, I think one of the conclusion was we had hoped that with this bike path or pedestrian path, that might bring all the relevant parties together to try and resolve that plus the traffic issue. Do you see that within the scope of that bike path project, or is that some wishful thinking?
I'm afraid my take is that it is wishful thinking. I'm not sure that the people that are focused on the shared use path are concerned, or they're aware, but they are not as concerned about the traffic flow that we all experience during this time of year. And when Randy was here, from traffic control, Lee County traffic control, he basically talked only about what was happening on Pine Island. And we all know that that is really not the issue. The problem is Matt Lachey is just too small, you know, for regular flow of traffic.
Mike?
I did see a lot for sale though. And maybe they could make a big parking garage out of that lot. It's right there on Pine Island Road.
So Mike, I think Scott had something.
Yes.
Was that you,
Yeah,
Scott?
well, yeah, I think I caught that they were thinking of a 10-foot wide bicycle path.
No, they actually, 10 would probably be the widest that they could make it. And that would be, again, not just bicycles, but a shared use path. And
Right.
one of the stipulations is that if you have a path that is that wide, it cannot be adjacent to traffic. So that means, and this is one of the things that they are suggesting we try out during this complete streets, is you need to put some kind of barricade there, whether that barricade is a series of planters or light poles or trees or whatever. But they're thinking that for much of Matt Lachey per se, it's going to be probably on the tighter side, maybe 8. But maybe when you get out to the heading west towards Stringfellow, towards Stringfellow, that it will expand and get out back again to, you know, maybe 10 feet.
Well, I measured the path near where I live in Bokeelia on Stringfellow, and it's 7 feet. So
Okay.
I think that's a little narrow, having walked that and had bicycles up behind me. They don't beep their horn or nothing. They'll hit you on the arm if you're too close to the middle. But
Right.
anyway, I was thinking more about, you know, that land that Cape Coral wants to have donated to them out in Lee County, from Lee County, by the bait shop.
Yes.
Would that be probably 10 feet wide right there, the sidewalk?
Well, I know that they're going to have to make it. I don't know. I mean, I frankly, I don't know, but I do think that they're going to have to make it 10 feet wide for most of the parts that are outside of Matt Lachey. In other words, where you're talking about is entering Matt Lachey. And then same thing on the other side. I think that the big crunch is, you know, in the middle. Can they make that 10 feet wide? I don't know. You know, you've got wires, you've got utility poles on both sides of that that area. I'm not sure right at the D&D, but right around there.
Yeah.
Okay, you know, thank you, Scott and Mike. I see Sherry has her hand up. Sherry, you'll have the last word on this, and then we need to go on.
If you remember where the old Loblolly was, which is the vacant lot next to the Wild Child, several months ago, we approved a development order for a antique multi-shop and a residence above it. That was not able to get through the historic committee. And so the owners of that land have put it up for sale again. And they have purchased the place that used to be the shoe store across the street that sold Merrill shoes.
Yeah.
I talked to the owner of the property, and they are selling the property that's next to between Wild Child and the menagerie, and that place will be available and will not be what we had previously approved as another shop.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Sherry. Anybody else with ideas for Mike, please contact him directly. Mike, maybe you can put your email in the chat.